Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. Over the last almost 4 years of the show, we have interviewed multiple leaders of political parties. We've had the leader of the NDP on. We've had the leader of the Alberta Party on. We've had the leader of the Liberals on. For some reason, none of the UCP leaders want to come on the show, but we do have another political party leader who's joining us today. We are joined today to talk about the future of Alberta and the future of one of the political parties in Alberta. Jordan Wilkie, leader of the Green Party. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be here.
I'm really curious to see how this conversation is going to kind of come out, because for anybody who's listening or watching, we're recording this on, let me get the date right, October 7th. For anybody who's been playing the IB Poly home game, yesterday, Danielle Smith got elected as the leader of the UCP. It was a very late night. Lots of things going on. So I'm curious if any of that's going to bleed over to the conversation today. But Jordan, before we get into the political things, who is Jordan Wilkie?
Well, thanks for asking. And again, yeah, it's an honor to be here. I'm in Treaty 6. So I was born in Edmonton. I live here, and I'm a very, very proud family man. I'm a father to my wonderful son, Kale, and I have a wonderful wife named Shanice. And like you, Nate, I'm in the emergency services. I have been for over 15 years now, 14 with fire. So, I've dedicated my life to helping people, and that's kind of where my sense of duty comes, to serve community. And, the people that are in need most. And, we have, I know in your show, you've talked a lot about privilege. And when we have resources, we need to support others. And I've been very blessed in my life, and giving back means everything to me. There's so many people that need our support. And so that's kind of where my heart is every day. And that's kind of where my heart was when I started to enter politics, even though it was kind of a winding road to where I am today. I hold a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's in disaster emergency management. So I mostly got into humanitarian work outside of firefighting, and I spent 5 years volunteering with the Red Cross. So, for example, when Fort Mac was going up, I was supervising the shelter in Edmonton. And, I was immersed in disaster emergency management, and I realized that there wasn't just these ongoing humanitarian issues abroad, which is what I was working on at the time, but there was a lot of things happening locally, not just wildfires, but there was chronic houselessness. There's the allowance of poverty in our society, which is a policy measure. It's a strangled public service, and there's inept lack of proactive politics in our system. So basically, I didn't get into the emergency services nor disaster management to get into politics, but it kind of brought me into it. And so when I watched the reactive way that politicians were focusing on some of the issues, it didn't seem like we were going to get anywhere. And when you have a child, right, your whole mind shift switches. And so that's when I really thought, okay, I want to make sure that he understands that his father is going to step up and do whatever he can to ensure that we have a better future for my son and for the younger generation. So that's where my heart's at, and that's how I got into politics. So, yeah.
I mean, I feel like the fact that you're a firefighter and you want to get involved in Alberta politics, you are involved in Alberta politics, the jokes there just write themselves by and large, because especially after the last 24 hours, Alberta politics is unmitigatedly a dumpster fire. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. Why the Green Party? Why did you, I mean, there's a couple of parties out there. Why did you choose to align yourself with the Green Party, and how did you become the leader?
Yeah, so I was looking at obviously progressive politics. I wanted to see which political party was really going to stand up for the little guy, the working class. And as I sort of navigated through, I got very excited during the Notley run in 2015. As you're going to talk about more in the show, I'm a big advocate for proportional representation and a stronger democracy. So when I saw what was happening in the NDP at that time, they had a platform plank for proportional representation, which I thought was just going to be a total game changer for the province and for our democracy. And then I knew that what was going on with the LEAP manifesto at the time, so a very, very important document regarding our way to create climate action that was meaningful by Naomi Klein and many other NDP advocates. So I really thought, hey, this is the party. And so when I got involved, I had this great sense that change was going to happen, and I was waving that sign, the change we can believe in. And when I saw what happened after and realized that they had pulled the proportional representational plank 3 months before they were going to get elected, when they saw that they were going to win under first past the post, I felt betrayed. And then when Notley said that the LEAP manifesto was a betrayal to Alberta and basically allowed a 40% increase in oil and gas during her time in office, I again felt betrayed. And so I was really disenfranchised and I stepped away. But when I did that, that's when I had my son. And so basically I had to go back and look at, okay, how can I be of service on a higher level? Because I'm in the community every day, but what more can I do? And I just looked at the value system. So it was super easy. The Greens are a global movement. I know that the federal party has had some troubles in the past couple years, but there's a strong green movement all over the world, and provincially there's a strong green movement. And so everything comes back to the 6 principles. The Greens are like no other party. They have a 6 principles, and then they have their own policy. So although we are separate from the federal, the provinces all look to the 6 principles, which is ecological wisdom and sustainability, which the Greens are known for. But participatory democracy is where it starts. And that's where we get into the proportional representation and citizens' assemblies and not whipping our votes. But also social justice is right up in there, respect for diversity and nonviolence. So when you look at the principle system, it wasn't really a hard decision. And so when I got involved, I thought, okay, well, here I am working on disaster management, working on policy, working with the city of Edmonton a bit at the time for some of their wildland urban interface issues. That's sort of the wildfire issues in our river valley, and how those issues were going to get more urgent as climate change happens, as population happens, as supply chain issues happen. I'm like, okay, I'm a disaster manager, and here we are with a bit of a disaster on our hands, not just with politics in Alberta in general, but also within the Green Party system. Because at that point, and this is a longer story, but they were infiltrated. In 2008, I believe they had, and I'm going to get this wrong, it was 12% of the popular vote. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. Maybe that's a little bit higher. I should have done my research, and I apologize. But they were up there as one of the major parties. They're infiltrated by a member. Well, he became a member of the Wild Rose Party, and his crew came in and basically took over the party, and then they didn't file. So the party was destroyed after the 2008 election. And there was this massive 3 to 5 year rebuild of the party. So if you're wondering, oh, where are the Greens in Alberta? Why haven't they been a factor, especially if you're newer to politics, as I have been? You wonder where they've been this whole time. And it's not because it's oil country, it's because they were destroyed. And it took a long time even just to get the name back. And that's why we're not the Alberta Greens, actually. We're the Green Party of Alberta. So there was a big switch up that had to happen. So I digress. It's something that I don't normally share, but I know your show does get into the nitty gritty of politics. And I thought that was kind of an interesting fact to know that there's a huge rebuilding going on in the Alberta Greens. And so when I took leadership, when I was elected in, I basically had to start kind of, I don't want to say from the beginning, because there was a lot of incredible people that were working away to keep the party alive, but we weren't acting like a party that wanted seats. We weren't acting like a party that was ready to go out and fight for our values. And sorry, I don't want to fight, but speak to our values and propagate collaboration within the legislature for the issues that matter to all Albertans, because that's where I'm coming from. So I'm not a very partisan person. I just looked at the value system and chose this party because there really wasn't anything else available, especially after what happened with me and the NDP. So here I am, and we're rebuilding, and we are working towards this next election. We are actually in the process of filing our first, I believe it's 16 candidates. So we're going to jump way above the Alberta party. A lot of people excited about what we're up to, a lot of people getting involved. It's really exciting to see the youth coming online, and a lot of people that have been disenfranchised, as I had been for so long. And we're talking about Danielle Smith last night, and all the issues that are now coming to the table today. Electoral reform is sort of the spearhead of where we are taking our messaging for the next election. And that integrates into all of our values. And I believe that if we can have a proportional representational system and electoral reform, we can give the people of Alberta another option beyond the duality, beyond the duopoly, beyond another 4 years with a UCP majority under Danielle Smith.
Okay. 16 candidates. That's not a small number. Where are you dropping them?
It's coming up. Edmonton and Calgary, but we've got some good rural ridings coming up too. So we're just finalizing things. So we're being really careful as newbies in the political landscape. We don't want to rub Elections Alberta the wrong way, because again, we want to make sure we cross all our T's first. So before we can say anything, and that's why it's taken us so long to get these first 16 out, because we want to make sure we do it right. And I think that that's kind of everything that we do right now, is we just want to make sure that it's simple and that we're getting the message out and that it's correct, and so that people can get on board and they feel like they're being supported and they feel like they're part of something professional. And that's been my work as the leader over these last 3 years, and right through COVID. It was very difficult, but here we are. It's exciting, okay, for sure.
I assume you're one of those 16?
I am. Hey, I'm going to get in there. Yeah, so I'm very excited. Yeah, if you want to know, it's not official yet, but I'm seeking the nomination for the Rutherford riding here in Edmonton. And I work in Edmonton. I've been serving this community. I've been putting myself on the line for a long time here in Rutherford, and I love it. I love the people. I love going to the doors when we have calls, and just everybody here is just so incredible. So I'm really proud to put my name forward. I have family here. I live in Edmonton South. The Edmonton South riding, if you look at it on the map, is a little strange. It's got this little nub that comes up through McGrath in the north of the Henday, but everything else is lower. So I'm just in that little nub, but my family lives up in Rutherford, and I'm there most of the time anyways. I take care of my grandmother. She's 100 years old. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. So
Did she get her letter? Is she going to get one from the king or the queen?
Right. I keep asking, like, what's going on? We've got this, the queen is, no longer in service. And here we are. So yeah, she hasn't gotten anything yet, but if she gets the plaque, I'll let you know. I'm sure it's on one of their top priorities right now. But yeah, no, a huge
gotta get those centennial signatures out there.
A huge influence in my life, and such a lovely woman, Marjorie. So I'm really happy to represent that area, and it's really exciting to announce it. This is the first time I've talked about it, because there's a lot of talk about where I should run, and a lot of people had a lot of opinions, and we did a lot of door knocking in different areas just to get a feel for what Albertans had to say as well. And so, for me, as I mature in my political volunteership, because it's not a career, I'm just volunteering. Everyone in the Greens is a volunteer. I'm just realizing that we just have to be authentic, and we have to do what is authentic for us and represent authentically, and then everything becomes easy. It's no longer a stretch. There's no longer games. We're not trying to play this game to get votes and to protect the base and everything you're seeing in the bigger parties. we don't have to do that. And so that's good, because mental health, as you and I both know, is such a major factor. And it matters so much that we ensure that we protect our mental health and that we come authentically, or else it's very detrimental for not just the messaging, but just how we live our lives and how we can relate to not just the community, but our family. And so that comes first, and being authentic is the key to representing, I believe.
So honesty and sincerity in politics, that's I think that's something that a lot of people are looking for, but given what we've seen from a lot of political parties, it's a little radical.
I know, isn't that incredible?
Well,
I think it's reflective of the times that we live in, probably, where I mean, we had a conversation last night after the Smith thing, where we talked about the fact that there seems like there's a lot of politicians that are much more comfortable manipulating people than they are just presenting their values and their policies. So that's interesting. I want to talk about the electoral, not electrical reform, although I bet that's probably part of it. I want to talk a little bit about the electoral reform piece. So you're advocating for proportional representation.
Absolutely. Yes. So,
which is,
sorry, I was just going to say it's probably one of the more abstract concepts in the voting system, which presents some barriers for some people to understand it, because a lot of people go, well, I voted for that guy. That's the person. So if you could just do a brief masterclass on what sort of proportional representation is the Green Party advocating for?
That's a good question. So what is proportional representation? It basically comes down to the fact that every vote matters. It's part of the reasons why people are so disenfranchised, why there's not representation from a lot of women in politics, and also minority groups. So it does create, basically, to break it down, it does create a system where your vote matters, because if you have 40%, let's say, of the popular vote, like the NDP had in 2015, then you would get 40% of the seats. And so that's the basics of proportional representation, no less or no more. Whereas in the first past the post system, of course, you could have 40% of the popular vote and then have I think they had 70-something% of seats, and of course, 100% of the power. So what we're looking at here is the power structure in the legislature. And so through a proportional representational system, and there are many, as I think you asked which type I prefer, and we can talk about that. But through that system, the votes matter, you have more collaboration, accountability, which is key right now, especially when you have $13 billion to spend. This is the point where the people of Alberta need to say that, look, this is our money and we need to have more accountability. And so we need to have votes that matter, and we need to have people that represent the diverse values of Alberta. And you saw last night Danielle Smith getting up and saying that this is what Alberta is asked for, and that she was basically speaking for Albertans. And we can go on to that. But to get back to your main question, the types of electoral reform, there are many. The main ones are a mixed member, proportional, and singular transferable vote. But what I think is important, and I've had some people kind of debate me on this, is that we start utilizing citizens' assembly. So again, our principle in the Green Party is a participatory democracy, and nothing is more participatory when you have citizens involved in direct democracy. And so when you have a citizens assembly, they can choose what is best for Alberta, what is best for the people, instead of it being a partisan strategy. I don't want to choose a strategy that would work best for the Green Party, because that's not necessarily what I'm after. What I would like to see is what's best for Alberta, considering we have a lot of rural urban issues, and ensure that there's representation in rural as well as in the cities. So if we go back to 1923 to 19, I believe 35, again, I don't have my numbers in front of me. about over 30 years of proportional representation already existed in Alberta. And so we had a singular transferable vote where we had multiple members being elected in the main cities. And then we had an alternative vote, which is kind of what you saw last night, which is a ranked ballot in the rural areas. And so that doesn't work as well. It's not really a proportional system when you have a ranked vote. But in the cities, it did create more proportionality, and it did allow a stronger voice for a lot of the different parties that were representing the values of Alberta. So again, a long story short, I think a citizens' assembly would be best to choose exactly what is perfect for Alberta. But again, any proportional representational system is better than first past the post, right? It's a combative and narrow-minded system that we have right now. And you can see it reflected in our politics of today. It's a winner take all, it's divisive, it's colonial. It's, the first past the post is the root of a lot of systemic failures. And when you have politicians fighting all the time, and when you have, basically, if you think about your house, if you had mother and father or whoever's leading the house fighting all the time, what happens to the house, right? And so there's more division today than I've ever seen before. There's more anger. Everyone is kind of at each other's throats. And I think that it comes from this root failure. And so when we look in coming back to disaster management or even firefighting, it's like, why am I going to put water on the smoke all day long? I need to hit the seat of the fire. And so this is how I look at some of the issues today, because it's systemic. And I think that if Albertans want a systemic answer to the systemic issues, they can vote for electoral reform. They don't have to, we don't have to get down to the nitty gritty of what type and which ridings and how it all works. If you want to get into that and geek out, you can go to Fair Vote Canada, and they have all the information you've ever wanted. But what you saw in Quebec just recently, with 41% of the popular vote going to one of the parties that got the 100% of the power, everyone's screaming for proportional representation in Quebec. And I think that if people understand what's coming for us now, they'd be screaming here. And I think it's time that Albertans stand up for the democracy and they vote for a party that's willing to push through and legislate proportional representation. And so that's what I'm focused on. Yeah, that's what I'm focused on. We can go into more of the strategy if you'd like. But it's, in a nutshell, we're like a protest vote. We've always been a bit of a protest vote here in Alberta because strategic voting is so rampant. So instead of blocking the Conservatives and fighting, we could have another option where people vote Green, or whichever party, if other parties want to join this coalition for proportional representation. And I'm totally open because it's not about partisan politics. And that's the whole point. If they vote for this, we can legislate it. Let's run another election under the new system where people can vote for their values. And then you won't have someone like Danielle Smith taking 100% of the power and doing whatever she wants for another 4 years. So right now, this is the time to get behind this. And I know that, as you said, it's a bit of a stretch for people because the civic literacy is an issue, and it's not necessarily a straightforward thing to be campaigning on, but we're going to do our best, and we're going to get the message out as the days and weeks come to ensure that Albertans understand that there is this other option.
Okay. I mean, the obvious question that I have to ask, well, there's two. The first one is, so is this largely the sole plank of the Green Party's platform heading into May 2023? The idea that we're gonna do proportional representation, and then we're immediately going to hold another election. Is that the overall strategy?
That's the strategy because we want to keep it simple.
Okay.
There's different levels. When I'm running my campaign in Rutherford, I'm hitting all the doors. So what I can promise people is that I can represent them. So whatever happens in this macro campaign, if this protest vote turns into a revolution, that's fantastic. This is for the history books. But when I'm hitting the doors, I'm talking about the fact that I can represent people better than the other parties. We don't have party whips. I'm the party leader. So in Rutherford, you're going to get your concerns, your hopes, your dreams messaged in the legislature, and that is 100%. They will have media attention. So it's exciting to come to the doors authentically and be able to represent the community that I wish to serve. But as you said, yes, 100%. We stand for a lot, as people know, in the Green Party of Alberta. And how can we speak to our values? I'd love to say all kinds of amazing things to you right now. I'd love to say, let's double H, let's get a UBI going, let's end houselessness once and for all, and really properly use housing first. Let's attack the opioid crisis. Let's speak to the issues regarding food and water security. And this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to get there. I'd love to do all that. But until we have, the reality is people are voting to block other parties. They're voting strategically. And this is what's happening in all kinds of regions in the world. And they've gone to proportional representational systems, which allow more collaboration, which allow more a lot of amazing things. It's good for the environment. It's good for the economy. Less inequality, less debt. So this is a chance to really switch the systemic issues. And so I think if we focus on the root of the fire here, right, let's hit that seed of the fire, then we can overcome a lot of the issues that are affecting us. And that's way better than just calling each other names. It's way better than just saying that we're in this boat because of this person and that we're the solution. And the other thing I say is that you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution, but you're never the full problem and you're never the full solution. And that's a lie. And yet political parties will constantly tell you that they are the solution and that the other party is the problem. And I think that in our hearts, we can understand that that's a farce and that it's a lie, and we need to do better. And I think that people are calling for us to be better if we want to represent them. And I'm really excited to see how this campaign goes and how it grows, and see who comes, comes online and wants to be part of this. And we're looking for more candidates. Absolutely. We want to run a full slate so that if you believe in this enough, if you believe in electoral reform, I want my vote to matter. I want the number of votes to be equated to the number of seats in the legislature. Then doesn't matter where you are in Alberta, you can find that green vote and you can tick your name off on it. So that's the exciting part, and that's what we're working towards.
Next obvious question has to be, you've already referenced that the NDP for a little while there had a proportional representation piece. I believe there was at least one federal party that also ran on proportional representation and then maybe ditched it. I think it might have been the Liberals, the current government, who could do the thing if they wanted to. It seems like, and you acknowledge this yourself, it seems like there's parties that say, hey, you know what, proportional representation, we're going to do it, guys, it's going to be great. And they get a whole bunch of people who are excited, and they go, they're going to do proportional representation, this is going to be great. And then they get a bit of power, and they go, oh, we like this, we don't want to give this up. What makes Jordan Wilkie and the Green Party different? Like, it's one of those things where, somebody says, hey, I'm not going to punch you in the face, and then they punch you in the face. Next guy comes up, hey, I'm not going to punch you in the face, punch in the face. Third guy comes up, it's Jordan Wilkie and the Green Party, hey, we're not going to punch you in the face. People are going to be a little flinchy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's, I'm glad that Justin was able to mainstream the need for it. But his failure to implement it is obviously another massive betrayal. So betrayal after betrayal after betrayal, how do you trust anyone anymore? So I think that coming from where I'm coming from, if you can't trust a firefighter, if you can't trust someone in the emergency services to do the right thing to help people, I don't know who you can trust, but it's not just me, right? We have a whole party here. And I think that that's kind of the key messaging behind, what if we run on this one issue? What if we run on this one issue? It's not about this and this and this and this, and we'll get to proportional representation when we have some time. We're running on this. This is what we're going to do. It is our duty to do this for Alberta. It's pretty hard to just all of a sudden say, okay, well, we're going to get to it. So again, there's going to be, a leap of faith I would assume that people are going to trust politicians in general. And that's the environment that I've walked into here. And I can't change that other than try to create a track record myself. And that's what I'm doing now. And that's what I'm hoping this election will be about. And there's no easy answer, Nate, that you can trust, but all I can say is that this is what I'm here for, and this is what I'm dedicated to do.
Are you guys, I have a couple more questions that I definitely want to get to, and I'm going to actually write that one down so that I don't forget it. Because I want to ask, like, one of the questions that I'm sure some people are going to come up with when they hear, wait, their only platform piece is proportional representation. It probably would take a little while to get the citizens thing that you referred to together. It probably would take a little bit of time to hammer out the details of this is what the proportional representation is going to look like. I don't know. I'm going to pull a number out of the air. 3 months. Is the plan to just effectively leave the government in caretaker mode during that process, or how does government happen while the Green Party wins government? How does government happen while the Green Party wins government and tries to implement this proportional representation piece?
Right. Well, I don't assume that I'm going to be the only person, that the Greens are going to be the only people elected. What we are looking at is proportional representation. Doesn't mean that we're caretaker mode. Sure, why not? Because what we're trying to do is a systems change which affects a lot of the issues that we're speaking to already. If we want to fight for less inequality and better living standards for the people of Alberta, how does that help if we don't have a system that's working together for the people and representing the diverse groups? So this is the work that needs to be done. Does that mean we're not at the table to ensure that the province is still running? No, we're working together already. It's like, how can we act as if proportional representation is already happening? And that means working collaboratively within the legislature. I know people are like, this guy's a dreamer, but I'm okay with that. I want to see a better world. And I know that it can happen and that we have the tools to do it. I think that if we continue to go down this path, that we can't fix these issues and that we're going to just battle over the crumbs that they give us, then we're never going to get anywhere. And so these are the systemic changes that need to happen. And it starts immediately after this election, that we collaborate within the legislature, that we do take care of the issues that are needing to be taken care of in those days and weeks and maybe 3 months. And then we get this done. We get this done. And then once that happens, we can all vote for our values. And we can have a system that is accountable. We can have a system that speaks to a lot of the issues that we're already worried about. Within the Greens, obviously, environmental protection is a big one. And environmental protection goes way up when people are working together in a coalition government under proportional representation. Inequality goes down, less debt, better public services, more protection, more accountability on how we spend our money. And I think that those are the issues right now that are not clear on. It's very scared. I'm very scared of where we're headed. So much so that a lot of my friends and, I even catch myself going, what are we going to do? Are we going to leave Alberta? Right? Are we going to leave our homes? This is where we were born. This is where I was born. And this is, I want to make sure that we have a better Alberta after, I've come and gone. But now everyone's talking about leaving. People are worried about their children growing up here, and it all starts with this root issue that where we have a system that's inherently flawed and given to us under a colonial rule with rules that make people fight. And so I don't want to live in that type of world, and I don't want to vote under that system. And a lot of other countries don't, and a lot of other regions don't. And Citizens Assembly is definitely something else that I would love to, mainstream for the people of Alberta. And I know there's a lot of other people. I had an incredible phone call with the previous Liberal leader, David Swan, and he's pushing very hard for Citizens Assembly. And this is another person that wants to see us be better. And I am really excited to work with people that want to be better and not fight. But we're in a system where you get rewarded if you fight, and you're in a system where you get fundraising if you fight, and if you have a big bad enemy, and the socialist NDP and all this crazy nuts messaging and narratives. And that's why people attack things like carbon tax, and they attack things that are easy targets to divide people. And I think it's a scary world that we're living in when we can't collaborate and represent the people that vote us in. And I think if we can take our mentality back to the servitude and say, okay, I'm a civil servant, I'm serving my community, then, and that's where I'm coming from, and that's how I'll knock on the doors in Rutherford. And if we can come back to that, then I think we can get our hearts and our heads in the right place.
With the next one that I have is, there may or may not be a number of by-elections coming up. We know that there's a vacancy in Elbow. As of this morning, we now know that there's a vacancy in Brooks Medicine Hat. Ms. Smith has said quite clearly that she will only run in her home constituency, and Mr. Reid has not resigned yet. Is the Green Party looking to run anyone in those by-elections?
Well, we're a small party, so we have limited resources, and I think that these crazy first past the post strategic games aren't beneficial for us to play in. Why would we utilize resources when we have an election coming? And everyone can play their strategy games. But we're having none of it. We want to fight for something bigger and focus on the need for proportional representation and electoral reform. And, these games can end. And even the merger of the right happened because we had what people call a left of center party, which was the NDP. I would say center right. But we are in Alberta, so that's cool. Without them winning, there would have been no merger. And if they had fulfilled their at one point plank for proportional representation, there would have been no need for a merger. And so what you see is this extreme right takeover, wild rose takeover of the UCP is a product of first past the post and the inability for politicians to do the right thing, as we talked about. We said we're going to do it, then do it. So this is what we're up against. And so when it becomes more clear, but for the average person, they're not thinking about it. And so if I can mainstream this need, there's obviously various victories within any campaign. And if I can mainstream the need for electoral reform, if I can mainstream the need for proportional representation, then I feel like I'm doing what I need to do to ensure that people do speak about this at the pub, at the cafe, around the dinner table. And I think that that's a big job that we have ahead of ourselves. Similar to what Andrew Yang did with UBI. No one was speaking about UBI in the States until he ran for president. His whole platform was UBI. So this is a similar example of where we're going with our messaging. But sorry to go on a huge tangent, Nate. I don't think we will run. If someone's really super eager to do it, we'll always support them. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. And we're watching this day by day as it all unfolds, right? It's changing by the minute. But yeah, to leave Calgary Elbow with no, like the NDP are correct, like to leave Calgary Elbow with no MLA, it just shows how flawed our democracy is.
Well, and it's fascinating to me because Smith has been so clear that she will only run in her home constituency. And we have Michaela Frey Glasgow this morning saying, okay, bye. And that's not Danielle. I mean, it's close, but it's not Danielle Smith's home constituency. And so I'm wondering, what I'm looking forward to watching is how many other UCP MLAs say, so long and thanks for all the fish. And how many by-elections do we not have? is going to be fascinating. But I have one really big hand grenade I want to throw into this conversation, because it's been a sub conversation that's gone on in Alberta for the last 3 years. There has been a lot of conversation in regards to people who were involved in the convoy, people who were involved in the anti-vax, I would argue in many ways anti-science movement. And one of the narratives that's out there is the idea that it was the far right that did these things, but we got our horseshoe going on, and there have been allegations that there were a whole lot of Greens involved. What's your take on that?
Like, are you talking about like federal Greens or just Greens in general? Greens around the world?
Greens in general.
Again, it's like a sub conversation, but I want to hear from you. Are you somebody who believes in vaccination? Does the Green Party of Alberta, or what's the proper title? Because I know you said it changed.
And I'm going to get it wrong in my head.
Alberta, you're nailing it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Does the Green Party of Alberta have some sort of pro-vax, anti-vax stance? Is there some sort of pro-health measures, anti-vax health measures? Or is it really just, look, we don't want to talk about anything other than proportional representation, and if there's some people in the convoy, there's some people in the convoy. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think the Greens, there is a bit of libertarianism within the Green movement around the world, and I think that might be part of that conversation that you're talking about. Personally, I believe health measures are super important. I think vaccines are super important. I think that the trust that we talked about is absolutely an issue. I think that the way that the whole COVID-19 response was politicized was really damaging for public trust and for people to get behind a lot of the science-based issues, which are so important. So yes, I mean, there's major problems in trust, and similar to what the BC Greens put out, which we don't have like very specific policy on this, but similar to what the BC Greens put out, I really love how they were talking about the need for a neutral scientific board to run the vaccine rollout, to run the measures, to run some of the basically the overall strategy, because it got so political so quickly that people didn't know what was true and what was false. And what you're seeing now, even with Hinshaw today, there's a lot of issues around trust. And so I think that if we can, again, get back to trust, I think that, here we go, proportional representation would be very helpful in that, because again, the transparency and the accountability that we're talking about, it creates a working group of people. And, you know, when there was calls like, why isn't Notley involved in any of the COVID protocols and sort of policy? Yeah, I believe in that. Why wasn't she? You know, why weren't other MLAs invited to the table? Because this is a global pandemic that is ravaging our province, and now you want to play politics. So I don't agree with that. I think that we should all be working together, and I think that if we can get around some of the trust issues, I think that you know, safety measures that were really needed could have been instilled. And when we talk about the public services and the need for strong public services, I think that, you know, that's at the forefront of that conversation. And one of those services is the AEMA, which is the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. I didn't hear anything from them. So I'm a disaster manager. I'm going, okay, well, where's the AEMA? Because this is a pandemic, and it's a lot more than just medical. Obviously, supply chains, and the ability to deal with this is a huge scope, and I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything from them, and I really think that they should have been in charge. It shouldn't have been a politician. Shouldn't have been politicians that don't know what they're doing. Just basically saying, okay, how can this help me with my polling, or you know, like, how can I be popular through this and make sure that I get reelected? Because as soon as they get elected, it seems like that's all they care about. So again, if we have a systems change, I think we can create more trust. I think that a lot of people are confused about what's best And I think that a lot of people are confused about what they need to put in their bodies, and I can respect that. But I think that if the messaging is more clear and we work on public trust, then we'll have a lot more uptake on the scientific needs of vaccination and the health measures that were, really needed and utilized quite poorly during that time. Yeah.
I had to ask because I've seen that idea floating around out there quite a bit, and I did not see any Green Party flags at, I don't know, Coops. So I figured I would make that clear the slate on that one.
Yeah.
What are the big things other than proportional representation? Because I'm getting the feeling that you care about proportional representation. I might be reading that wrong. That's the sense that I get. But what are the big things that you want people to hear about the Green Party? We're like 6 months away from either an election or the acknowledgement that we have moved into a dystopian future. And what do you want people to take away knowing about the Green Party, other than the proportional representation piece?
Right, of course. Well, we're very strong on public services, and we believe that our education and healthcare systems are obviously under attack, and they need to be reinforced. And so we definitely have strong policy on how we'd like to see our public systems be supported. That's our social services and everything, especially emergency services, as we move into the climate crisis, and we have droughts and water security and food security issues, which are going to be ravaging our province over the next 5 to 10 years quite strongly. So I think that, again, without going too far into this, I would like to see proactive engagement with politicians to really focus on what's coming towards us for the climate crisis. But beyond that, we can't ask people to get, to worry about the end of the world if we can't show that we worry about what's going to happen in the next week, in the next month, and so on and so forth. And so we're very strong advocates for universal basic income, and I believe that a social net, a security net for people to go out and get retrained to the jobs that they want to do, to get back to work, where there's no sort of hooks to keep them from not working, like you have, which you had in CERB and EI. So we want to see people flourish and have that ability to pay their bills, to not pick between a roof over their head or food for their children. And so this is the basics of what we care about, is making sure that the people that are in need get what they need. And so definitely we want to fight the inequality in our society. We want to ensure that Albertans can pay their bills and that they can get by, and ensure that they we're focused on well-being and not on corporate interests, and not on special interest groups that are basically controlling a lot of the policy that's being made right now. So yeah, strong government. As far as a democracy, of course, we've talked a lot about that. But again, the ability to represent, the fact that the Greens are almost like, they do politics differently. They're almost like a team of independents. So we don't whip votes. There's not like, I'm with Jordan, and so I vote whatever Jordan says. That's a terrible catchphrase, by the way. I'm with Rachel. It doesn't give a lot of people trust that their wishes and needs and concerns are going to be spoken to in the legislature. So when we don't whip votes, we have a stronger democracy. When we're fighting for more representation, we have a stronger democracy. But that definitely allows us to also focus on the need to protect our future, the need to protect our public services, and of course the sustainability of our jobs and our economy, and the need for a just transition is really important for that. So we have to be talking about all of this. We can't be going through boom and bust cycles in our economy. We need to ensure that the economy is strong and stable, and that can only happen if we focus on diversification, of course. And so that's, again, a lot of people know these things about the Greens, but it's nice to reiterate it, and that's where our focus is. Strong services and a strong economy, and looking towards the future. But again, how do we deal with today? We have to ensure that people are taken care of and that we have a security net. And I think that there's nothing better than a universal basic income for that.
Awesome. Anything else you want people to hear? Final words.
No, I mean, I'm really excited to be on this show. It's been great. We've been trying to do this a couple of times, and it's great to finally be here. Nate, keep doing what you're doing. Don't let anyone talk you down. You're doing great. You're doing great. Keep it up. You're a voice that's really needed. You're filling a huge void, Nate. So thank you again so much for doing what you do and having me on here and allowing me to just talk openly. And I'm not going to say everything right. I'm not going to have all the answers, and no one does. And when they do sound like they're saying everything right, it's scripted. And I think that if we could be more authentic in our politics, if we can represent communities at a level that people are integrated in the democratic system, we're going to have a better society. And so what you do, Nate, is epic, because you're spreading that civic literacy and you're telling people to get involved regardless of partisanship. And I think that partisanship is, again, there's a huge focus on that, and we need to get away from it because hyper-partisanship causes a lot of the divisions that we're having in our society. I think that we can do better. And I'm hoping that in 2023, people will look to us. And if they want to get involved, if they want to run in one of the 87 ridings, we're filling up quick, but there's still some available if you wanted to get involved in democracy. A lot of us, we're concerned citizens and stepped up, and you don't need to have this crazy background in politics. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a career politician. You just have to be someone who deeply, deeply cares about society and wants a better future and wants to support those that need support most. Get involved, reach out to me, leader@albertagreens.ca, or just come to the website, albertagreens.ca. Thank you so much, Nate. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. I'm just super proud of the fact that a paramedic and a firefighter sat down and neither of us made paramedic and firefighter jokes, because I've got a bunch. I know firefighters have a bunch about paramedics.
We're evolving. I feel like we're evolving, and this conversation is helping that. Like it's a leap, quantum leap forward.
Awesome.
Same team, right?
It's true though. Thank you so much. As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're trying to produce here at The Breakdown, we would love it if you swung by our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab and signed up for a small monthly sponsorship of the work that we're trying to do here. It is because of the support that we receive from our Patreon sponsors that we're able to continually up our game, and it is tremendously appreciated. So I want to throw a big thank you out to them, and you can go ahead and visit that website and join and support us as well, because we need all the help we can get. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for listening and being part of these important conversations. And we will see you next time on The Breakdown.